There's something I send my clients when they're really struggling with continuing to get caught in those old narratives, which has the cascading emotional consequences. There's actually it's a Coca-Cola video of a man laughing on a train, and I cannot even now. I've watched it 100 times. I cannot watch that thing without laughing, and it is
It
amazing in just 45 seconds how much you can shift your state, and then the rest of your
yeah,
day follows.
yeah. And do you remember when we were kids? I mean, I guess they might still do it, I don't know. But we used to tie a string around our finger so that we remember something. Like, before you go to bed, tie the string around your finger, and you wake up and you'll see that it's like your finger's all bloodshot, right? Like, "Oh, crap." And you take it off and you remember why you put it on. It's the same concept when it comes to negative emotions or hurtful or shameful or painful emotions. It's the same concept. You can remind yourself of this thing. Whenever this happens, I'm going to do this. And then it becomes a habit. You do it 66 times, it becomes a habit. After 66 days, it's a habit. And then a habit becomes a characteristic, and a characteristic becomes a personality. And then that's just who you are, right? So then you become a person who dictates their emotions and dictates their own feelings. And I'm telling you what, it is the most freeing thing in the world to be able to dictate your emotions.
Welcome to the Reframe, where fear is brave. I am your host, Rebecca Molman, trauma therapist turned trainer and podcaster. Today, we dive into a story and roadmap moving from extreme adversity to reclaiming personal power and purpose through kindness as well as forgiveness. This is a powerful and vulnerable conversation that will hopefully spark hope and inspire you. One of my favorite quotes from Sonny is, "It's not about what you have done, but what you do that defines who you are. You get up and you make that choice every day." There is a trigger warning around childhood sexual assault, but there is no graphic detail, just a mention of it. It is an absolute honor and privilege to share Sonny Von Cleveland with you today. So without further ado, let the episode begin. Well, Sonny, it's absolutely a pleasure and a privilege to have you here today. And it's
Thank you
most,
so much.
yeah, absolutely. It's something I've been looking forward to for a bit now. And to have someone with your experience and your history to be able to come and bring voice to the subject of forgiveness and the journey that looks like. And you have quite the backstory to yourself. If you could share just a little bit about who you are and what brings you here.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a motivational speaker and now an author, with just releasing or about to release my autobiography, Hey White Boy: Conversations of Redemption. I grew up in the middle of the country in Michigan, and I was molested quite a bit as a child from the age of 5 until around 10 years old by 4 different men. I was a convicted felon at 7, and I went to prison at 16 and served 18 years in total on 2 stints. Got out after 5.5 years when I was 21, and was a train wreck of a human being, and went back when I was 23 in 2004 and did another 12 years. And it was in 2008, I think, I went to the hole, for an extended period of time and met a Muslim man across the hall who broke through and got to talking to me and helped me understand what it is to process emotion and to forgive myself and to forgive others, and really harness in the power of forgiveness and kindness. And ever since then, I've been dedicated to trying to help people learn this amazing life skill of forgiveness and kindness. I think it's the one thing that can really get your life wherever you want it to be. You know, the only blockages that we have in life are the ones that we perceive, the ones that we allow to be there, which is a choice. And I've come to learn that everything in our life is a choice. Every single waking moment of our day is a choice. And then when we can learn to lock that in and apply that to every facet of our life, it opens up so much to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious, going back to that Muslim man that was sitting across the hall from you. What was it in what was it that he shared with you, or what was it about that situation that really was able to get in?
Well, the first thing he ever said to me besides, "Hey, white boy," was, "Why are you so angry?" And I mean, this is after a week of him calling over to me and me trying to ignore him. And I was not a happy person. I wasn't a nice guy. I wasn't a sociable person. And not to mention all the gang politics that exist inside the penitentiary system, and him being a Muslim and a Moabite in particular. We would not have gotten along in any other circumstance. And it was just the serendipitous situation that allowed me to break down and say, all right, call it loneliness, whatever you want. But I broke down, what? What do you want to talk about? And he said, why are you so angry? And I mean, I fired off, obviously, the immediate things that you can think of. I'm in the hole. My life sucks. I'm in prison. You won't shut up. And he said, no, that's why you're mad. And mad is a surface emotion. Anger is way deeper. And you're an angry young man. And I could not answer that question. I mean, all the surface emotions that pop up, that's the immediate responses of what you want to give. And so he got me to thinking about it. And then as I go through and reflect on why I'm angry as a man inside, why I'm so angry, it's because I'm harboring all of these victim emotions from my past, from my childhood. And I didn't know what I'm supposed to do with that. And it boils down to forgiveness. And that's where it comes. I'm so ashamed of who I was at that point that I wasn't able to see past the hurt and the anger. And I felt that everything that was happening to me or had happened, that I earned it. I deserved it. I was not worthy. I remember reading The L Factor by, it's not Mark Sanborn. I can't remember the author's name. There's a book called The Likability Factor. And as I read the book traumatized me the first time I read it, because to me, I'm like, I'm not worthy of being liked. I'm not worthy of friends. I'm not worthy of having a good life because I have caused so much pain and havoc. And there's no way to come back from that. I don't know how I'm supposed to get over that. And that's where the concept of kindness and forgiveness comes in. First, be kind to yourself and then learn to forgive, right? Because you can't change anything that's ever happened. And these are the things that he broke down for me. He helped me to learn practical, tangible steps that you can go through to isolate emotions that you've experienced in your lifetime and work through them, work through the emotion. If you're sad, cry. If you're angry, scream. If you're happy, laugh, smile, be joyous, right? To go through and actually feel every emotion and then talk about it. Talk, because our voice is our healing mechanism. And so here I am standing across the hall from a man that I don't know from a hole in the wall. And I'm telling him every dark secret about my life, every emotion that I've ever felt. And it just poured out of me. And it's because that level of kindness or that compassion that he showed me, that our voice is our healing. Once you start to use it, it becomes so much easier. It's just like a muscle. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And that is called healing.
I wonder if, and let me know if this is your experience with that, is that he was holding space big enough and kindness, almost like a container for you to be able to not only do that for yourself, but even to be able to begin to get to the point of forgiveness for yourself. Is that, or did it come much later?
I mean, it wasn't an immediate thing. I mean, it took some months, right? Like, so he and I were together across from the hall from each other for 19 months. And it
Mhm.
took months to get to that level. Because I mean, he knew that he had to chisel away at the walls that I had built up. And we were not friends, right? And he made this abundantly clear several times throughout this journey that we're not friends, right? He's doing this because this is what kindness is and this is what compassion is. And he is doing natural life in prison, so he'll never get out. He'd been in there since 1984. And he felt that through me, and he said that he seen something in me, and through me, he could leave a legacy of his own that could help heal the world and help to balance his own level of forgiveness. And so as we go through these steps and these processes, when we get to the point of I've learned the problem in my life, but now how do I fix it? And I remember having that there was a very deep moment where I started to sink into a depression. And it's after the likability factor, after I read that book, I started to sink into a very bad depression. I was ashamed. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I was having haunting nightmares and it was killing me. And he had told me, he's like, all right, you got one more date. Cause I didn't talk to him for like a week. You get one more day to sulk in all your stuff, and then we're going to work through it, right? And then you got to let it go because it's in the past. You can't change it. You can't fix it. And my thought was, how do I get forgiveness from all these people that I've hurt, all these people that I've wronged? I've could have destroyed families from the stuff that I've done, and I don't even know them. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they are. How am I supposed to ever ask for forgiveness? And it was the age-old adage that we've heard a lot: write things down and set it on fire and burn it. Except here we don't have fire, so we have to flush it down the toilet. And so he told me, he said, go back, sit down, and write heartfelt emotional letters. Put all of that sorrow and that remorse that you feel into a letter to each and every victim that you have in your life. And so even if you don't know their name, just imagine this is going to them. Write it down, right? Explicitly how you feel and express that remorse. And then you're going to flush it down the toilet. And what you're doing is you're giving it to God. Allah, God, Odin, Buddha, whatever power that be that you observe, you're going to give it to them. And by living the life that you know that you should live, your remorse, God will put that remorse onto those people, and they'll know it. They'll just intrinsically know it. And he says, look back, now that you know how to forgive, look back and what do you feel about the people that have victimized you? And I'm like, I have forgiven them. And he's like, that's the point. They didn't apologize. They didn't come seeking your forgiveness, but you forgive them, right? And so maybe somewhere they're begging for forgiveness as well. And they've done the same process, and they've somehow have iterated to God their remorse. And God's put that on your heart. And so I'm very non-religious, right? I don't subscribe to this, but it was making sense to me because I know that there's some type of power that be somewhere. There's some type of universal source or spiritual entity somewhere that has part in the everyday playing of mortals. And so to me, it worked. I mean, I wrote these things down, I flushed them down the toilet, and it was like a weight to being lifted off my shoulders. And before, like we've talked about, I've thought that wanting forgiveness in and of itself is looking weak. It's like, if I'm asking people to forgive me, other people are going to look at me like I'm weak. But the only people that are going to look at me like I'm weak are the people that are still doing bad things or are still evil people in the world. Because good men understand that asking for forgiveness is just another thing in life. It's just a part of being vulnerable, being authentic, and being real. And it takes courage to be real, right?
So, what do you think people, men or women, really, that because this forgiveness piece is a really difficult, sticky subject because people oftentimes feel like they're saying that whatever has happened to them is okay. How can I forgive this person if what they did is so horrendous? Right. So, how can someone reframe that to be able to pivot towards being able to personally forgive those who have harmed them?
Well, for me, when I look at if like we'll take my uncle for example. My uncle started molesting me when I was 5 years old and continued on until I was 10. And if I look at that and I continue to be angry or harbor some kind of grudge or resentment towards that, all that does is keep it alive. It's just because it's not happening now. If I sit down and put my logical brain on, I haven't been touched or violated in 40 years, 35 years, right? And so it's only still happening, or I'm still a victim if I allow myself to be, if I choose to be. And by harboring that resentment towards him, who's dead, by the way, he's not even on the planet. And so I'm giving power to somebody that's not even breathing, right? And that if I look at it logically, and here's a great way, a great exercise that people can do to see how this think that you're, put all of your pain and victimization onto your best friend. This happened to them and they're wallowing in their victimization. They're stuck there. What would you tell them? You would say, let it go. It's over. It's not happening now. And I promise you, the people that victimized you are not thinking about it. They're not over there wallowing or welling in their victimization of you or their predatorship. They're not consumed by it. You being consumed by somebody that has harmed you is only hurting yourself and nobody else.
Mhm. So, if we were going to look at the process of forgiveness from my own experience and with clients as well, it seems like it has layers to it, where it has deepenings to it, where there's kind of the initials of the surface, just kind of approaching it. And then it seems to have a softening and a deepening effect where you get more into the meat of the content, at which point there's a point where it just releases and moves on. Is there a way that you could put a little bit of structure to give people a roadmap to once they've pivoted towards something that they would like to apply forgiveness to, then what are the next steps? How can they walk down that road?
So write down, get a piece of paper and isolate in your life, find this one emotion that's causing you all this pain. And you isolate it. You write it down, what happened, who, what, where, when, and why. And you write these things down. And then write down what you would do about it. There's no barriers in life. There's nothing that you cannot do. There's nothing to stop you. You can do anything you want. What solution do you want? What would you do? You can do anything. Nothing's illegal, nothing's off the table. You can do whatever you want. Write it down and then look at the steps that you could take to get to that. And and then weigh the pros and cons of it. If I do this, what's the benefit? If I do this, what's the negatives? Right? And then when you start to see that, most of the time you're going to see if I carried out what I really wanted, and if I was able to make it happen, it would only cause me, them, and everybody else around us more harm. Whereas if I don't do it, well, how can I move forward? How can I regain my life? And it's looking around you and seeing the beauty of everything that exists right here, right now in front of you. And if you spend any time not looking at this, you're always looking at this back here. You're missing everything that's right in front of you. And you have the beautiful life. Everybody has a beautiful life if you just take it. If you just choose right now, you can say, you know what? Starting this moment, right now, nothing that has ever happened bothers me. It's a choice. You can choose to do that. I am choosing to not allow anything that's ever happened to bother me, whether I've done it or somebody's done it to me. It's a fresh start right now. And you move forward and just every day center yourself, right? There's so many practical steps you can do. Wake up, have a routine in the morning and every morning, 10 minutes by yourself, sit outside, just think. Allow the thoughts to come in, accept the thoughts, whatever the thoughts are. If they're painful thoughts, if they're shameful thoughts, accept them and then let them go. Accept them, let them go. And then make a dedication to yourself that I am not going to think about this anymore today. And I'm just going to live in the moment.
Mhm. So you're giving your entire system, mental, emotional, physical system, just to have a free for all. This is your free for all. Let it come
Pre-
in, let it come out, and then refocus and pivot towards with intention on what you have chosen and are curating for yourself to move ahead in one direction.
Right. Because again, if you've ever sat down and like listened to a baby laugh, if you like put on a video on YouTube and just look up a baby laugh, even just talking about it, you and I are both smiling when you
Yes.
hear a baby laugh. And what we've just done is chosen our emotion, right? In that moment, we just chose to laugh, smile, and be happy because we thought about something that makes us happy. And you can do whenever a thought comes in that is negative or hurtful or painful, you have the ability to say, okay, I recognize that this thought is here. Let me pull up a video of a baby laughing. And it will completely sidetrack you and you will laugh at this baby. Was giving a speech to the Indio Rotary Club the other week, and I used this to great effect in the whole audience. Hey, smile in a room. Have you ever tried to smile? And I start beaming, smiling, and then this guy picks up a smile, and then that guy smiles, and it's infectious, right? It just starts to infect everybody because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be happy. There's just sometimes there's blockages and there's barriers, and we don't know how to get past them. We don't realize that we can choose to just move them to the side, right? It's not going to eat our soul. It's not going to deteriorate us in any way, shape, or form. You can just choose to let it go.
Yeah, there's something I send my clients when they're really struggling with continuing to get caught in those old narratives, which has the cascading emotional consequences. There's actually it's a Coca-Cola video of a man laughing on a train, and I cannot even now. I've watched it 100 times. I cannot watch that thing without laughing. And it is amazing in just 45 seconds how much you can shift your state, and then the rest of your
Yeah,
day follows.
yeah. And do you remember when we were kids? I mean, I guess they might still do it, I don't know. But we used to tie a string around our finger so that we remember something. Like, before you go to bed, tie the string around your finger, and you wake up and you'll see that it's like your finger's all bloodshot, right? Like, "Oh, crap." And you take it off and you remember why you put it on. It's the same concept when it comes to negative emotions or hurtful or shameful or painful emotions. It's the same concept. You can remind yourself of this thing. Whenever this happens, I'm going to do this. And then it becomes a habit. You do it 66 times, it becomes a habit. After 66 days, it's a habit. And then a habit becomes a characteristic, and a characteristic becomes a personality. And then that's just who you are, right? So then you become a person who dictates their emotions and dictates their own feelings. And I'm telling you what, it is the most freeing thing in the world to be able to dictate your emotions. Most people think that this controls this, and that's just not the case. The heart, we have artificial hearts, right? People, they can rebuild a heart, they can put a heart back up, but there's no such thing as an artificial mind. And we're not even going to get into the AI debate. There's no such thing as an artificial mind. They cannot give you an artificial mind. So that tells me that the mind controls the emotion. And so, and I know it's true, because anytime you get mad, you can stop, breathe. They got all kinds of breathing techniques. Breathe in, breathe out, rub your earlobes, all this wonderful stuff. And that's how you recenter yourself. So you can control your emotions, right? And some people, and even people that are licensed to be therapists, subscribe to the fact that you cannot control your emotions. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
100%. I think there's some reverse engineering that you can do. There's emotional states that can bubble up that don't have you can't necessarily find a cognitive or a time frame that it happened, but you can still follow the emotion and move it past, move it through. But as far as intentionally controlling your emotional state and having it coherent with your mind is absolutely doable.
It,
I'm
it 100% is.
I'm curious so you have such an extreme contrast from how you grew up and what you've experienced in your youth to where you are today, and really stepping into a very powerful position as a speaker and as a coach, and just as a human spreading so much valuable information and spirit and love. I would really like to know that moment where you kind of woke up in a way and turned around and be like, whoa, my life's different. I know today it's different.
It's I live with the memory of the nightmare of that life, right? And so the nightmare doesn't haunt me, but its existence is there. I know that it happened. I relive the nightmare every single day of my life. And that is what keeps me on point and keeps me focused. I don't ever want to go back there again. I don't ever want to experience that again. And I know that it's a choice, right? It's a choice to go back there. I cannot ever go back to prison. I can never be victimized again unless I allow myself to, unless I choose to put myself in that position. And that's not to say that something couldn't happen. I could get robbed at a gas station. I could get jacked at a stoplight, right? Sometimes bad things happen, but it's our response to those things that determine whether or not I'm going to be traumatized, right? I don't, I can realize that sometimes people just do bad things, right? And sometimes bad things just happen. And we look for a million excuses to blame it on. Karma, you know, other people. We try to blame it on other people, right? And it's not a very popular belief. It's not a popular opinion to have that we choose everything in life. People will be like, well, I didn't choose at 5 years old to be molested by my uncle, which is true. I didn't cognizantly make the decision to do this, right? But I allowed it to victimize me my entire life, right? I didn't know back then because I didn't have somebody to come in and say, hey, this is what you're doing. Nobody cared enough to actually talk to me to find out what I was going through in my life. But had somebody done that, it could have been completely different. And so I think the moment that I really realized that I'm a good person, I'm worthy of a great life, I am worthy of having everything that I want and desire in my life was after, and when it wasn't really even too long ago, but it was after I left my youngest son's mother because I had still been living for other people. Even with all the knowledge and wisdom that I had had in the training I had had, the being released back into the free world after all those years really hit you. It just hit me like a freight train and things that I hadn't anticipated seeing and trying to, amalgamate to this new life. It sidetracked me and I allowed myself to get sidetracked, which was a lesson that I had learned while there that if you don't continuously every day practice these things, you'll fall off. It doesn't matter who you are, how educated you are, how much you've studied, how much you've learned. You can fall off if you don't take a conscientious approach to this every single day of your life. It's a never ending fight, but it's not a brutal battle or a war that is going to exhaust you. It's a very easy thing, becomes, again, a habit becomes a characteristic becomes a personality. And so when you wake up every day in a happy spirit, your day goes happier. When you allow the emotion to come and go, accept it for what it was, realize that it doesn't control you, then you make the conscious choice to be kind every day. Kindness is my compass. No matter what I do in my life, I do it with kindness. Even if I don't like you, I'm going to let you know that I don't like you kindly, right? And not disrespectfully. And it frees you. And so that was the moment I really realized. I thought it when I got out of prison. I'm like, here it is. I've got it. I finally made it. But I was able to sink back down. And so I still had lessons to learn. I'd thought like, man, I'm really well put together, blah, blah, blah. Still had lessons to learn, and nobody is beyond failure.
Absolutely. I love that you highlighted the fact that it's a tool or it's a muscle that you need to practice every day. And in
100%.
practicing, you can gain momentum and it becomes easier and easier. But just like gravity, if you don't continue that effort of standing, you're gonna end up on the floor, right? You're going to
100%.
create. Nothing is stagnant, nothing stays the same. It's either you are proactively growing or you will be doing the opposite.
100%. I mean, I did all that time, learned all those lessons, mentored all those people, got out of prison and was on a really good path, and then met this woman and allowed myself to sink into this life because not only was I exploring a new relationship and a new lifestyle, but also became very successful in local music. And so this carrot dangling in my face, I'm like, wow, what is, I want to explore it for the first time in my life. I went from staring at cells and inmates to a crowd full of people that's roaring and chanting. And I'm like, this is nuts. And I lost it, right? I didn't pay attention to my studies. I didn't study every morning. I started to, because I'm staying out late at night, I'm forgetting to get up early in the morning and think and meditate and take time for myself. And so it starts to deteriorate the lessons that you know. It's just like if you learned a new language and you didn't speak it for 10 years, you're going to forget most of it, right? And so I fell off that path and then had a really rude awakening when everything was stripped away. I'm like, okay, I'm about to lose everything in my life, but why? Why am I going to? Because I'm a good person. So why am I going to lose everything? And then you go back and oh, I'm making bad choices. I'm not doing bad things. I'm just not doing good things. I'm not doing positive things to move myself forward and keep that muscle alive and keep that muscle strong. And then I started to, and boom, life picks right back up.
Absolutely. And doing those positive things, I think shifting, just like what it kind of come in full circle where you were talking about the baby, right? Or laughing on the train and really
Sure.
shifting your focus. And what I've watched you do is, which I think is absolutely gorgeous, when you put anything into service, when you put your prayer into service, your own dedication and your own practice into the service and serving others, then it catalyzes it. It puts it on steroids.
It's
And I'd really
100%.
love for you to share a little bit about what you're doing with that, with the show that you have going on and sharing those positive moments.
Sure. And so I do a show every morning. Well, sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I sleep in and I'm a human being
Mhm.
and miss the show, but I try to go. I went every day in the month of July. because I wanted to show people how to start forming a habit, right? It's already a habit for me. I'm pretty religiously up at 5 a.m. I sit on my front porch. I watch the sun come up with my coffee, and that's my time, right? And I do that every single day. And I read the Daily Stoic, which is never far away from me, right? I read it every day. And it's a habit. It is who I am. It's almost like I don't have a choice. Like I do it by instinct. And it's those things that I try to emphasize on the show. It takes the same amount of energy to Google good positive news in this world as it does to look up CNN or Fox News or whatever mainstream media that's emphasizing nothing but chaos and hatred and dissension amongst people. It takes the same amount of energy. And so that for me is, I don't care if there's one person watching or if there's 1,000 people watching. For me, it's, this is my gift to the world, right? I'm going to put this out for whoever might randomly see it or need to hear it. Somebody might be able to look at that and say, I'm in a bad place in my life, and maybe if I follow what this man's doing, it seemed to work for him because he's been through a lot, and maybe it'll work for me. And then try to inspire them. And like I mentor the juveniles in the Indio Juvenile Hall out here in Indio, and I do some reentry coaching at the Anti-Recidivism Coalition in LA. And to see the impact that it has on some of these young men and women, it's just so fulfilling when I can take an experience that I've had in my life, and I know that you feel where I'm coming from on this because you've gone through a similar experience, and I can demonstrate to you that change is possible, that taking control of your life is possible, forgiveness, healing, and help is possible. And here's how I did it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but I'm going to tell you how I did it. And maybe you can garner something from the path that I've walked, and you can apply it to your own life and just be happy, because every human being that exists is worthy of love, is worthy of kindness, and worthy of feeling happy. We're not designed to be sad. We're not designed to harbor pain. We're designed to be happy.
Absolutely. I think another practice that could be employed is when people are caught in the repeating thoughts that they have and they kind of walk around with a negative perspective. They're always looking for what's wrong, right? As opposed to then they're both available.
Sure,
They're all both
sure.
available.
They 100% are.
But if you engage with them on what is right or what is working or what is, I swear I say that to my kids all the time. Let's focus on what's working. What's working for you today? And shifting their perspective of like, okay, let me look at what's available in that positive direction rather than what feels like it's always against me. But I wonder
Yeah.
how impactful that would be in our families and our own like small units of people to be able to, as you have that person come to the house for dinner and they're always kind of that negative Eeyore, is help to shift the conversation maybe.
Well, here's the sad truth that, and again, I may get shut down at some point in my life because of it, but it's the truth and it's reality. There are a large amount of people that would rather feel pain than nothing, right? And I think that's their fear. They are afraid to step out of that victimhood because they're afraid they don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel worthy of kindness and friendship, and they're afraid that it doesn't exist on the other side of that pain. And so it's easier to remain in that victimhood because at least somebody's paying attention to me. At least I'm getting some type of validation for what I have. Because oftentimes when we get victimized, we lose an identity. We don't feel that we have an identity. We don't feel validated. We don't feel seen. We don't feel loved. And when we lose that feeling of love and we lose that feeling of acceptance, we lose an identity. We're like, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose on this earth? And if I don't have an answer for that, and I don't have a clear pathway to feeling some type of validation or acceptance, I'll just accept whatever's coming. And so if it's even in form of pain, at least you know I'm alive. So if you're picking on me or you're bullying me, at least somebody registers that I'm here and I'm not invisible. And then we get so comfortable in that moment that it hurts a little bit, but I just laugh it off. And that's where you find people that might be slightly overweight or not attractive enough on Hollywood standards. And then they it's okay. It's just a joke. They're just making a little joke about my love handles or, or whatever it is. People make a slight joke and they accept it and they laugh at it and they laugh with them because at least I'm being seen instead of empowering themselves that that type of language and behavior towards me is unacceptable because I'm worthy of being loved. I'm worthy of being liked because I'm a good person. And everybody on the planet is the same. We all are worthy of that. And so it's a matter of eliminating that desire to remain a victim. And it's not even victimhood. You see people that hate their jobs but deal with it. That hate their home life and deal with it. That are unhappy in their relationship but stay because they're afraid of that change. Because what if on the other side of pain is nothing,
Hmm.
right?
You know, the question I get asked a lot, and I'd love to see how you answer this, is yeah, Beck, but I'm hollow inside. I feel hollow. There's nothing there. I have nothing to hold on to. It's like they struggle to even find an ember. And how would you walk somebody through to even starting to begin to have faith that there is something on the other side, that there is a worthiness coming from within, something to hold on to?
I always start with if time and money were not an issue, what would you do?
Mm.
Right? You've got millions of dollars in an unlimited amount of time. What would you do? And more often than not, that first thing that they come up with when they sit and they think about it for a second and then they give you that response, there it is. So you have something in this world of some type of substance to you that you have a passion for, that you have a desire to do. It's there. How do you get to it? So you can't be hollow, you can't be empty because you have a desire. You're acknowledging that you have a desire, you just have money and time problems that are in your way. And so when you psychologically trick yourself that time and money are not an issue, you'll start to find things that you really like to do. So now let's focus on how we can start taking step towards whatever that goal is for you. And you're going to find happiness in the journey because it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right? And I know life is not a destination, it's a journey. Facts. Walk that journey and you'll find happiness along the way. If you feel, I remembered this when I was at my absolute lowest, rock bottom. I learned to appreciate being at rock bottom because there's nowhere else to go but upward. So everything else is a bonus. So if you feel hollow and empty, that means that you have the opportunity to create something that makes you passionate. Find something to define it. If you don't know what it is, discover it. And that's the beauty of life. You get to discover. That's the beauty of diversity. Look into another culture, look into something else, and you find something that you like. Discover it and build it.
Mm, curiosity, just having that curiosity to
Sure.
explore.
100%.
Well, if you were going to talk to somebody right now that's listening to this, that was where you were at on some level and feels like they're at rock bottom, maybe angry at the world, feel like nobody understands them, nobody gets them, but is hearing your voice and is just desiring to, like, I want to get there, but it seems so far away. What would you say to them?
I would say delve into and understand Mark Twain, his famous quote of, let us endeavor to live that when we come to die, even the undertaker will mourn. When we live if we have nothing, if I'm at the bottom and I have nothing, I'm at rock bottom, I can choose to then from that moment forward, rebuild a life that when I die, even the undertaker will be sad. The person who deals with death every day is never sad. He just puts people in a grave. And if I can live such a life that they will be sad when I die, then at least I've lived a life of purpose, right? And if I have nothing left, I have nothing to lose, right? If I'm at rock bottom and nobody cares about me, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms. I might as well build something because there's nothing left here. I have nothing to lose, so might as well try something different. The definition of insanity, as we all know, is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. But the definition of self mastery is doing the same thing over and over and over and getting better.
I love that. Love that. Will you share a little bit about your book and anything else that where people can find you? They're going to be all in the episode notes
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
absolutely. So the book is called Hey White Boy, Conversations of Redemption. It comes out September 1st. We are in the final stages of uploading and all that, so the Amazon link will be available for pre-order. The ebook is already available for pre-order now on Amazon.com. And you can find it at heywhiteboy.com. That's the official website for the book. And the book is amazing. It's my wife and I have written it together. She's so much better at writing than I am. But who better to ghostwrite my book than my wife, who knows me better than anybody, who I also met on a podcast, it was insane. And I go through all that in the book, how her and I met as well. But basically, she has recorded me and interviewed me every morning for months and takes notes and then writes things out. I come back, we go over it together. Yes, yes, no, no, yes, change this, do this. And so it's the culmination of my life. Everything in this book from the early memory that I have moving forward till as recently as a couple months ago. Right. And I put it down because I've watched a lot of motivational speakers and a lot of inspirational people, and they always have this system. And I go against what tradition tells you. You know, you should have 3 points or 5 keys or 7 steps or 6 doors or all these other tokens and processes and things that will strategies that will get you to where you want to be. And none of that's ever ring true to me. I've never followed 10 steps or 7 keys or none of that. I have written this down to put my vulnerabilities out and show people that you can be vulnerable and you can be honest and authentic with your life and yourself and bear those scars. And maybe somebody can garner something from it. I've given you my experiences in this lifetime and showed you the processes I went through, the ups, the downs, the falls, the lessons I've learned in hopes that it can be a guidebook for somebody that's going through it or that has gone through it. And I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm telling you how I did it. And maybe you can take something from that and apply it to your own life. And if you can, then it's worth it. It's a success in my eyes. Somebody somewhere will find something useful in that book that they can apply to their life.
That's great. If there was one thing that you could pick just off the top of your head that really stands out, maybe one story or one experience from the book that you'd like to highlight?
The end. Yeah, where the end of the book, I think is the best. I am living such a fulfilling and purpose driven life right now, currently in this state that I mean, I wake up so happy, right? Like, and it's because, and I feel it. If I have an emotion, I cry. I cry all the damn time, right? Men are we're so conditioned not to cry and not to show emotion, but there are hormones that are released in crying. That's why when you cry, you feel better. At the end of it, you are purging yourself. The body does not like toxic things. It doesn't like anger. It doesn't like hatred. It doesn't like hurt. It doesn't like pain. And so it expels these things. And that's why we have emotion. That's why we have tears, because the body is purging itself of something negative. So learn to embrace those things. We have to redefine what it is to be a man. To be a man doesn't mean you can't cry, right? And I think that's why I resonate a lot with a lot of men, because if they don't typically see somebody like me that says, I've been raped, I've been molested, I've been hurt, I've been victimized, and I'm being vulnerable. I cry, I have emotion, and it's okay. It doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me a less of a man. It doesn't mean that somebody's going to come up and like you're going to punk me somehow or somehow disrespect me or something. Like I'm still 6'6", 230, bro. Like, I'm not weak just because I might show some emotion. And it's connectivity, right? Again, if you look at the Stoics, Epictetus famously said that human beings are made for the sake of each other, either teach or tolerate, right? And so if you're not going to step into a role of teaching, which I think everybody should do, we all have this unique experience in this lifetime, and you should teach from it. You should take the lessons that you've learned and pass it to the next generation. It's the parental mindset, right? Parental philosophy is I'm going to teach my kids to be better than what I was. That doesn't have to be restricted to your children, right? It can be restricted to anybody that you come into contact with. If you can make it a goal to leave any human contact or interaction that I have, I want you to walk away with something. I want you to remember it. I want you to walk away like that makes me feel better that I had that interaction with that human being. Then that's a goal. If you do that, your life has to be successful. Right? It has to be happy.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sonny, it's been absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you
And I'm
so much
gonna
for having me.
100%. I can't wait to see just the impact that you're gonna have on the world and continue to have on the world. The world is lucky to have you.
Well, I'm so blessed and lucky to be here. And it's living proof that it's not about what you've done, but what you do that defines who you are. You can get up and make that choice every day.
Thank you.
Thank you.